The idea of same-sex marriages is one that is at the very forefront of queer consciousness in India at the moment. The so-called bouquet of rights that goes with marriages in India is something that the LGBTQ community has been rallying around for quite some time. However, is India as a civilization ready for same-sex unions? Whether it is through civil unions like what Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud batted for in his verdict, or through regular marriages as we know them, does India accept the premise of love and let love? We'll talk about this with our guest. Joining us on the show is Onir. He's a film director, belongs to Bollywood, has made a number of queer-centric movies as well. Sahil Tandon, working professional, is also joining us at this point in time. Mr. Omkar Shinde, co-founder of Pune Queer Collective, also joins us on the show. And last but not the least, Mr. Sandeep Chatra, human rights defender, already with us on the program. Thank you everyone for joining us. In fact, Sandhya Honawar joining us on the show as well. She is a gender rights activist as well. Mr. Chatra, if I can begin with you. Mr. Chatra, first, your first and quick reactions to what you saw today. We have a number of guests, so would request you to please make your answer quick.
So, to your question of whether India as a civilizational society is ready, let me remind us that this subcontinent has a long civilizational history where it not only tolerated or even sometimes celebrated the question of diverse sexualities. We have earliest references to the idea of and the concept which beats gender binaries, the idea of Ardhanarishwara, where Shiva and Parvati and male and female together. So there's a long legacy there. Arjuna assuming the eunuch identity of Rinala. There I can go on and on. So this concept is not new. What happened in the 300 years of colonial rule is actually a reaffirmation of gender binaries. And to me, the task that we were hoping there would be clear judgment was actually a task of decolonization, a task which ensured that we don't live in a world of gender binaries. That is what our expectation was coming in when in 2018 the Supreme Court overturned Section 377 of the IPC, which is essentially about puritanical values and reaffirming those binary and puritanical values and decriminalizing homosexuality. So this would have been a logical outcome. To me, sir, and quickly, this is a missed opportunity. There's a split verdict. It's a missed opportunity for ensuring equal rights, for ensuring a right to marriage, for diverse sexualities, which we know exist. There are a considerable number of our people who have diverse sexualities and different gender identities that they assume at different points in time. No doubt, it's a complex task. It's been given to the parliament. There's a silver lining, I think, and that silver lining is, at least in the last year or so or more, it has been in the social conversations. It's been in the court. There has been public conversations. And we hope that these social conversations, which have visibilized a relatively invisible social issue, now goes to the parliament and provides an opportunity to mold what future law and public policy need to look like. Our hope, and that's why it's a bit disappointing today, our hope was that following 2018, today the Supreme Court would make same-sex marriages legal. It's a split verdict. There are some small wins, and there is optimism for future of how it goes ahead. So this, in the first instance, we need G. Thank you.
Let me also open Sahil Tandon, who's joining us at this point in time. Sahil, if you're there with us.
Hi.
Sahil, first up, what's your reaction? What do you make of the observations that have been made by the Supreme Court? All out, they have also indicated that perhaps the Indian society is not ready to accept same-sex couples.
So thanks, Vineet. Thanks for having me. And I think continuing from what Sandeep said, I think this is a missed opportunity. I think Indian society has a long history. It's not just society today, but when we look back in the way we think of Indian society today, going back to our roots, going back to our culture, I think it is a missed opportunity to not have, as Sandeep very rightly said, taken this moment of decolonization and really pushed for something that was truly Indian, that devoured what were morals and values enforced on us as a young person in a very urban setup, I think, of course, my worldview is very limited. My worldview is probably more protected and privileged. But I still think that the society's come a long way since 2018, since decriminalization. We've seen a lot more representation. We've got a lot more conversation. It is a complex issue. It's not easy. It has a lot of sensitivities, and I think the community understands them and the responsibility of having them meaningfully. But it's not to say that we won't, because it's a difficult conversation. I think we've come a long way, but definitely there's a long way ahead to go, as the judgment today unfortunately indicates.
Onir also joins us at this point in time. Onir, appreciate you taking out the time and speaking with us. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Well, first up, your reaction to what happened in the Supreme Court today. Do you think there are areas which can be called grey on what the Supreme Court pronounced, or do you think all and out, just like our previous panelists and including what Mr. Chachra said, this is a missed opportunity?
I think it is a big disappointment because, of course, all of us, I think, have been approaching it with cautiously, but with hope. And it started off with hope. There's a lot of flowery, nice things, observations which made us smile and say, wow, finally. And then suddenly it was like, okay, all this should be done, but not by us. And it was handed over to the parliament. And knowing that the government, all of us know that the government has been the main opposing force to marriage equality. So it leaves us nowhere. Ultimately it is about no to marriage equality, no to civil union, no to adoption, and only saying yes to a trans man getting married to a trans woman, and if they're getting married to an opposite cisgendered man or woman, which ultimately it's okay as long as you fit into our notions of man and woman. It's all like we'll accept you, and the rest of us need to be still wait. We have to wait to be treated as equal. There's this sense of entitlement that they can sit there and judge who can be given certain rights and who can't be. And I think it's very disturbing, because at the end of it, you realize that it's almost a lifetime that's gone in first getting decriminalized, and now you hope that after that things will follow, and at various spaces you see this resistance coming, and you are trying to analyze and wonder why. Because I don't have a problem accepting them. I don't have a problem to celebrate their marriage, them setting up a house together, a joint bank account, adopting kids, nothing. But why is there so much of hate for us? And this whole thing of culture, religion, tradition is all bullshit, because at the end of it, it is how you interpret, because you want to perpetuate hate and your power over someone else whom you think you have the right to control. And it is very disappointing. And I feel that more than us having lost today, it's the cisgendered world which has lost, because they have lost the possibility of becoming better human beings, because we are better. We accept, we love, we know how to be compassionate, we know how to empathize, but unfortunately they have failed.
Onir, there are a number of countries, that allow for same-sex marriages. What do you think is the cultural disadvantage that India needs to focus on in order to basically emulate these countries?
Yeah, I feel that we don't need to emulate those countries actually. We are not at a cultural disadvantage. It is actually people who are not educated enough to know our culture, know our history, that discriminate, because it's always been, queerness has been a part of our history, part of our culture, So people, like when I was told by the defense ministry that, you can't tell a story about an army person being gay, and you look back in history and you read the Mahabharata and you see that one of the greatest warriors, that our country had in its epics, and the first ever written was Shikhandi in Mahabharata, because of whom the Pandavas won the war. Today, the Lord Ayappa, whom we worship, is born out of a queer union. The presence of queer love is there in literature, in our sculptures, in our history. It's all there. It is just how you want to what you want to see and how much you want to see. So actually, we are in much more advantage than West, where you have a Bible or a Quran in certain countries where there are against things that can be misinterpreted. We do not have any such thing. We have only a history which has been far more inclusive, so it should be easy. And I think people who have been like the prosecutors saying that, oh, it's not our tradition, it's coming from outside, realize that Nepal, which till recently was one of the only Hindu kingdoms, was way ahead of India, decriminalized, because criminalizing was a colonial law which came from Christianity, and this was not actually our, culture. And similarly, even same-sex marriage is something that is accepted there. So how come a country which is predominantly Hindu is accepting it? So this, and honestly speaking, for me, when I think of these excuses of religion, tradition, history, nothing works, because the most important thing is humanity. And nothing, no excuse is good enough to try and suppress and oppress another human being from being able to love and live one's
Right.
life the way one wants to, without harming anyone else.
Onir, you just said, that half your life has gone by in waiting for, something like this to be decriminalized. What do you think, as somebody who's, a part of this community, an influencer rather, himself in this community, for what the next steps are going to be in making sure that equal rights are given, including when it comes to administrative issues and succession rights, which the queer community is, always battling for?
Yeah, I feel that, honestly speaking, it gets exhausting, especially today, when it to just, take it in, that what is it? Why? Because it's just unfair, and then you realize that as queer community who, we have been used to such setbacks. It happened in 2019. We have come back because our dreams are larger than their hate. Our strength is larger than their hate. And we will overcome, and we will, maybe not in my lifetime, that doesn't matter. It's not about me, it's about us, and so this journey for us towards being treated as equal in every aspect will continue, be it through, for me, through my work, and someone who's a lawyer, through their work, civil activist, everybody, each of us, we dream for a better world, and that dream is not about one person, that is a collective dream. And today, whatever we have achieved is also because there's been a history of people who have been, fighting for us every day. And I feel that will continue, and each of us, including myself, will continue to tell, to push the narrative of acceptance and love.
Onir, I appreciate your sentiment, and I appreciate the message that you've also given to all our viewers, and of course to the rest of India as well, through this message of yours. Thank you so much for taking out the time and sharing what you feel about this important verdict or observation, if we can call it, that came out by the Supreme Court today. Right. Mr. Jaisai Deepak, Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court, also joins us at this point in time. Mr. Utpal Kaul, political commentator, with us on the show as well. Jaisai Deepak, I'll come to you if you can hear me.
Yes, I can. Just a technical but important correction. I'm not a senior advocate. I'm an advocate.
Beg your pardon for that. What's your observation on what the Supreme Court said today? Is this, in fact, a silver lining? Does it have parts which can be considered a silver lining for the queer community, or do you think that the struggle is still on for them?
I'm not here in the capacity of an activist. All I can do is share what exactly has the Supreme Court said and shed light on the legal aspects of it.
Please go ahead. That's why you're here for, and so do that.
Yeah. So first thing is, I think there's a broad agreement between the 5 judges on the issue of legislative domain as well as the limits on judicial intervention. Of course, the reasoning is something that two sets of, let's say, judges have taken a slightly different view on. So, for instance, the Justice Bhatt's opinion, which has been supported by Justice Hima Kohli and Justice Narasimha, takes a slightly different position on what are the aspects which the judiciary can get into and what it cannot. But on the broad question of whether the Special Marriage Act can be interfered with and can certain words be read into the legislation, I think all five judges are on the same page. The larger disagreement between the two, let's say, sets of judges is on the question of adoption under Kara. And there, Justice Chandrachud, along with Justice Kaul, has taken the position that the rule in question exceeds the mandate of the Act. And therefore, it should be possible for non-heterosexual individuals, even if they are single, to be able to adopt. That's the position that the majority view led by Justice Bhatt has disagreed with, on grounds that it perhaps needs greater stakeholdership and consultation, particularly from child health experts. That's the position that they've taken, while they have expressed their, let's say, their sympathies or even perhaps their concern for the rights of non-heterosexual individuals. That's two. Point number three, I think the broader agreement, again, is on the question of whether a trans man and a trans woman are entitled to be treated as man and woman within the meaning of the Special Marriage Act, as long as they wish to marry or they wish to get into heterosexual marriages. That's a question that's been answered in the affirmative by both sets of judges. And of course, they've come out with very clear prescriptions for both the state and central governments on the issue of protection of the LGBTQ community from unnecessary harassment by police officials or anybody else, and to protect their dignity. And also ask the government to formulate a committee under the stewardship of the cabinet secretary to look into aspects of operational ease, so to speak, when it comes to nomination of partners for the purposes of insurance policies, ration cards, and whatnot. So therefore, there has been a broad agreement on recognition of unions as existing and validly existing in the society. But whether those unions can rise to the level of a marriage is something for the legislature to decide, is the broad position that they've taken. So this is the sum and substance of it.
Do you think that there are any legal avenues for the queer community that they can leverage upon in the future to uphold or push their cause?
See, what I would suggest is, if people are interested in advocating that position, they will find significant support from the judgment, where all the five judges are unanimous on the point that they are entitled to dignity and that there is a certain degree of legislative remedy that is called for. As I said before, the bench has not disagreed with the need for a remedy. The bench has only asked itself the question whether it should be a judicially crafted remedy or a legislatively crafted remedy. So to that extent, this is not a judgment where it has pit itself against the interests of the community. As an institution which is bound by a document which is called the Constitution, they have to respect the red lines of the Constitution, even if they agree with the cause. These are institutional limitations. This is not some kind of a prejudice that is pouring through the pages of the judgment. That's very important to recognize here. So it's not as if the judge, let's say the bench has been presided by or comprised by people who have fundamentally a problem with this particular group. And secondly, the court also recognizes, and this is something that emerged during the course of the arguments, that when you call it LGBTQ+, the fact of the matter is there are groups within these groups. So it's not as if the interests are the same, the concerns are the same. And therefore, from the perspective of the state, it's important to consider these differences, because as much as you celebrate diversity, it translates to practical differences which require some kind of a different treatment under the law. That's it. So this judgment is not pitted against anybody's interests. It is only an institutional limitation.
Understood. Let me also rope in Omkar Shinde, co-founder of the Pune Queer Collective, into this conversation. Omkar Shinde, if you can hear me. Omkar Shinde, if you're there with us. All right. Sandhya Hanover. Sandhya? Sandhya, if you're there with us. Sandhya ji, if you're there with us. All right. Mr. Utpal Kaul, I'll come to you. There seems to be a technical problem there. Mr. Utpal Kaul. Yeah. Sandhya ji, if you're there with us.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, ma'am. Ma'am, your response to what happened in the Supreme Court today.
Okay.
Of course, the queer community is not thrilled or happy about what transpired.
So first, I just want to quickly say that I'm not just a gender advocacy person. I have also been an activist for the LGBTQ community. And in fact, I'm part of a group NGO called change.org. And I floated a petition last year in August asking the government to allow, we specifically restricted ourselves to lesbians, allow live-in lesbian couples to adopt a child. So I just want to give it the context in which I am coming in into this discussion. I was, of course, as an ally of the LGBTQ community, terribly disappointed for all my friends that I had expected somehow a little more forward thinking on the part of the 5 judges. However, I'm very aware that they have interpreted, as one of our participants has just pointed out, that they have interpreted it purely from a legal and constitutional point of view. But I think the LGBT community was hoping for a much better judgment. I think partly because Mr. CJI Chandrachud is very positive, and we tend to cling to hope because of his positive allied ness with the LGBTQ community. However, some of us had already anticipated that this is not going to be a very positive. The only thing that came out was that yes, the LGBT community should be treated with respect and with dignity, but that's not a very big, what shall I say, advantage that the community got. And personally, therefore, I am extremely disappointed. We feel that, yes, after the 377 was decriminalized, we were hoping that the next step would happen. But now, having left it to the legislature, I'm going to frankly say that given the current dispensation, I don't have much hope for that. It may be donkey's years before this subject is even raised, although I know that part of the judgment today was that a special committee has to be set up. But is that going to be really helpful, or is it going to be just one of those things where, a committee will be set up and nothing much will happen from that? But okay, let's look at it as maybe one positive thing that has happened, one positive thing, that a committee has been asked to look into the needs of this. But given the current dispensation, to be honest, I don't have much hopes.
All right. Okay. Sahil, coming back to you. Sandhya ji said that, of course, there are some positives to be looked at this verdict today as well. There are committees that are going to be regrouping and, grouping once again to ensure that the administrative issues that the queer community has faced, for example, succession, will be taken care of. And that is something that the center has also voiced in the past.
Yes, so I don't know if there's a question in that, but I can just
I'm saying, well, the question is, there's a silver lining, right? So there is something to take home. It's not an all-out loss for the queer community. That's what I'm trying to say.
Sure. Yes, I think one should see the glass half full or a quarter full. And but again, I think this is it's not a new tactic. We know not just under this establishment, but the history of judiciary and how things get passed on. We know that this is sometimes a way of just burying complex issues. And so I would agree with other panelists. There isn't too much hope. One is disappointed, and one sees this as a way of just skirting the issue and not taking it head on. Again, I think people who are more aware of the legalese and the complexities of the judicial process probably can give us a sense of why the courts could not have in their jurisdiction given a judgment. But even so, we've seen that the governments have not always taken up these causes, haven't been as open, as participatory, as consultative. So one is hoping, one is really banking on all the drumbeat that was generated around this, the public chatter, the media conversations like the community collectivizing and raising these issues. Someone is hoping that activism, that collectivization can somehow create a wave, and somehow there can be more of an advocacy or an accountability conversation around.
And Mr. Chachra, coming back to you, the Chief Justice also said something which I found extremely interesting and true to the core. He said that there is a degree of agreement and there is a degree of disagreement on how far we have to go go when it comes to this judicial review. Now, that is a statement which basically enunciates, that thick line that exists between accepting queer people and basically not accepting them.
Yeah, I'd like to see it differently. First of all, I want to say that, hope is the rope that all activists and change makers hang with and hang by. So I am optimistic always. And I think what's happened is, slightly to disagree, but also to agree with the previous panelists, the discourse has shifted. The advocate from the Supreme Court who was speaking, the discourse has shifted from, and it's opened the path today, the discourse has shifted from the judicial domain into the legislative domain. And that is where our efforts for social change must now focus on. The point in contention is Article 4 of the Special Marriage Act, which defines or outlines gender and age at marriage. The question here being gender, because it treats gender as a binary. So I think that is where the energy of all of progressive, being human means being tolerant. Being human also means respecting diversities. So I think that is where the efforts should now focus on. The previous years have generated, as my previous panelist was saying, a lot of drumbeat. I'll call it social conversations and an enlightened public discourse and engagement around that issue. And I think that should bear pressure on the parliamentary processes as they look into not just the committees we are speaking of, those are operational aspects, but the amendments required into the Special Marriage Act, particularly the Article 4 of the Special Marriage Act. That is something I'd like to say. This whole thing that this is a Western import, this is an urban phenomenon, I think the Honorable Chief Justice in his, during the proceedings has already sort of referred to that. And as already I said, this is neither a Western import nor something alien to our civilizational context of the long continued civilizations we have had. And this is certainly not a Western import as it is being made out to be. It is so inimical to our culture. The example of Nepal was given. Taiwan is the other country in Asia which have already legislated. So I think for us it's quite natural to get there. We will.
Let me quickly rope in Mr. Utpal Kaul as well into this conversation. We have run out of time tremendously. Mr. Kaul, if you are there with us, sir.
Yes.
Your reaction to what happened in the Supreme Court today?
You see, 50 years before, we could not discuss even it, and it would be rightly rejected. But now, worldwide, and particularly in India, I may say that we have come a long way. And Supreme Court has rightly said that it will be finally the Parliament who can enact the law for it. But it's still a very ticklish problem. First of all, it is not now the criminal or it is not two people who love each other, they can live together. But by and by, marriage and adopting a child, these are very ticklish issues, and I think it may take some more time, and there will be a lot of discussion in our society all over India, and Parliament has to come, and that will be the final solution.
All right, that will be the final solution. Mr. Omkar Shinde, co-founder of the Pune Queer Collective, also with us. Mr. Shinde, are you disappointed with what happened at the Supreme Court today, or do you think there is an element, which should be taken as some mark of improvement?
Yeah, I was just thinking that what we gained today, we gained nothing. I mean, the judgment in the case of Nalsa and Navtej Singh. So I don't see any substantial changes in both the judgments that we received today and that time. There is we do not receive any substantial support from the Supreme Court what we were expecting. And I want to highlight some points that we are not discussing about the only one single petition filed by LBTI Network, Rituparna Bora's petition, which was focused on the natal family violence and which was highlighted the trans man and AFAB people from the community. The courts, why we went to the Supreme Court to reclaim our rights, and then Supreme Court said that no, you have to go to the government to claim your rights back. And now I don't see any hope, because in the current political situation in the country.
But Omkar, Mr. Utpal just said that 50 years ago you could not even have a conversation like the one that we're having today. So this is definitely an improvement, right? There is a time and a place and a pace to everything. There's a pace to everything.
Yeah, but pace at the cost of what? At the cost of the violence we face daily. Pace at the what cost? The suicide cases. The people are suffering from the suicides. I mean, what kind of pace you are talking about? I mean, I don't agree with the thing that society needs some pace to go ahead. I mean, this is not the point that people are dying because of these things. People are committing suicides because of this thing. And if someone is telling me that you need to calm down, I mean, I'm sorry. I want my rights now, today, and at this second. I can't wait.
Understood.
That my brothers and sisters are dying, and I'm happily saying that no, society needs time. I don't care about this society.
I understand, and I fully appreciate your sentiment as well. Well, there's lots more to talk about, but for now we have run out of time. We're going to continue talking about this important, verdict by the Supreme Court and what it entails throughout the day.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.